So you've got a game and you want to add risk to those jumps. So you try adding fall damage, but it doesn't work as you expected. It seems like it should be easy, but it only works some of the time, leaving you wondering, is it even possible? But you've seen it in other games, so it must be, right? Fall damage can feel tricky to get working, so today we're going to go over everything that you need to know to get a fully working fall damage system to your game. Let's get started. So we start by coming to server script service, adding the script. Then we're going to get the player service. So we're doing this because we want to add the fall damage to the player when they join the server. So what we do, we use the player service, we connect to the player added event, and this is going to give us our player. Now we've got the player, we can connect to the character added event. So we've now got our player and our character. So what I'm going to do now is create a function where we're going to have all the logic for when our character gets added. So I pass that into here so it gets called every time the character gets added. Now we've got the humanoid, we can hook into the state changed event. This event fires every time the humanoid state changes. So a state change example might be if you start falling, if you're jumping, you're running, if you're doing nothing. These are all examples of the state changed event. So we can use this to our advantage, and you can see here it passes us two parameters, the old state and the new state. So the state it was prior to the event firing and the state it is now. So what we can do, just to see what we get with this, we'll print the two values and let's run the game. Down here in the console, you can see we start off with running, falling down, then running again. Now these aren't all the states that are provided by Roblox. You can see here in the documentation, the humanoid state types, we're going to have a whole selection. Now most of these aren't relevant to us for what we need to do, but it's good to know that they're here, so check them out if you need to. So we'll stop the game, come back to it, get rid of these print statements. Because we're making a fall damage system, we're interested in the free fall state. We also need to know when the player's landed, so let's check for the landed state as well. So if we're in the free fall state, we want to do one thing, but if we're in the landed state, we want to do something else. Let's start by putting the logic together for free fall. I'm going to add this to a module script just so it keeps the code a bit cleaner, easier to read, and if you want to extend it, it'll be a bit easier for you to work with. So this method tracks when the user starts falling. But to do this, we're going to need to get the humanoid from the character, and we also need to get the root part. Now once we've got these two, we can populate the player fall height. Now this player fall height is going to hold the value of where they started falling, so the Y position of how high they were when they started falling. It's going to be able to identify the player that we're interested in using the player ID. So if we come back to this script and we require our fall damage module, by itself this isn't going to do much. It's going to need to work together with the landed functionality, the effect on the player. So let's add another function in here, and we can call this one conditionally inflict damage. I'll zoom out a little bit. Just like the above method, we'll want to get the humanoid and the humanoid root part again. We've got the isGrounded parameter, and this is only going to come through as true if the player is on the ground. We also get our humanoid and our root part again, and if all of them have a value, or rather if these two have a value and this one's true, then we're going to do some logic. And the first bit of information we need to run this logic is the start height. So up here, remember up here we set the start height, and all we're doing here is getting it, or if this has no value, we're getting the player's current height, just so we've always got a height to work with. If we're getting the current height at this point, then damage is never going to be inflicted, but it saves me just having to check for the start height. And the reason why I say damage will never be inflicted is because I'm saying the end height is the root part position Y. If I didn't add this in, I would then need to make sure that this has a value. And it just makes the logic a little more clean. So next we want to work out how far the player has fallen. So we'll make our fall distance equal to whatever the start height is minus whatever the end height is. Now this is going to come out with a value, and that value is going to be considered safe or not based on the value which was set up here. So we're setting a safe fall height of 10. So if the fall distance is greater than 10, then we're going to work out how much damage that we need to apply to the player. Now I'm adding a damage multiplier here and we'll see what that does in a second. So the way we work out the damage that we're going to do to a player is we take the fall distance, so how far they've fallen, minus that from what we consider to be a safe height, and then times it by a number. And that's going to work out how much health we're going to take away. So what we do here is make sure that our damage doesn't exceed the value of 100. Because we know that's our maximum damage which can be incurred. We then get our humanoid's health and take the health and minus whatever damage from it. Then once all that's done, we call the player fall height table, get the user ID, and we set it to 0. So we're resetting the whole process again. So next time it comes through, this will be triggered. Now, if we come back to our script and under the landed state, we call the conditionally inflict damage, passing in the player. And because this is going to be a landing state, we'll hardcode true to say they're grounded. So let's give it a try. So I've got this map from the toolbox, and we can come up to the top of this building. And if I jump from here down to this building, I don't get any damage. If I jump back up to the top of this building, I've got an invisible block there, just in case you didn't realise. I jump down from here, nothing happens. So let's log out why that might happen. So if I come into here, when I tried to land, it didn't trigger. So if I come into here and type print, and we get the new state and pass that in, now we play, we can see one of the first state that's triggered is falling down and then running, even though I wasn't. So if we run onto here, you can see the state's being triggered time and time again. And we want to see why this one didn't work. So we come down. And we can see that I got into the state of running here. I got landed, but I got running as well. So if I come into here, we can see landed is covered, but running isn't. The time difference between those two being triggered isn't much at all. So I don't really know the reason why we haven't gone into landed. But I'm going to check the running state. Because if we hit the running state and we call conditionally inflict damage and there's no value in here, then it'll take the current value, for the start height, which means there'll be a 0 fall distance, so nothing else will get triggered. So if we run this again, and this time I can't get up to the top of the building, and I jump, that's a problem. Right, I'm going to debug this. I'll be back in a minute. Right, I'm back. So we can remove this print statement, and I've worked out what the problem was. Get rid of that. We run over here. I jumped from here, and that was such a small difference. If I'd have jumped from here, would have got the damage. So what I noticed was that I've set the jump height to be 10 for a safe jump height, and this just falls marginally under that from here. But if I come up to here, then that falls into the damage area. So we can see that again as I fall, get a small amount of damage. Come to here, there's no damage. But if I go up these funky fire escape, come onto here and jump from the top, I die. So there we have our fall damage. So there we have a full fall damage script, working as expected. A little bit of damage comes on when you fall from a small height, and you get the full damage when you fall from a bigger height. If you found the video useful, please like and subscribe, it really helps the channel. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. I'm Tony from Humpop Gaming, I'll see you in the next one.